Chapter 2. Man and Society. In all of recorded history, men have never managed to establish a social order which didn't institutionalize violations of freedom, peace, and justice. That is, a social order in which man could realize his full potential. This failure has been due to the fact that thinkers have never clearly and explicitly understood three things. Namely, number one, the nature of man. 2, what kind of society this nature requires for men to realize their full potential, and 3, how to achieve and maintain such a society. Most self-styled planners and builders of societies haven't even considered that man might have a specific nature. They've regarded him as something infinitely plastic, as the product of his cultural or economic milieu, as some sort of identityless blob which they could mold to suit their plans. This lack of realization that man has a specific nature which requires that he function in a specific way has given rise to the floods of tears and blood. As social planners tried to wrench man apart and put him back together in a form they found more to their liking. But because man is, he is something. A being with a specific nature, requiring a specific type of society for his proper functioning as a human being. Since Darwin, scientific research has been steadily uncovering evidence of evolution which show the development of the nature of the human animal. In order to survive, men had to acquire certain behavioral knowledge and capacities. For instance, the knowledge that voluntary cooperation is good and the capacity to stop clubbing each other. Most men conduct their lives according to this knowledge and, when left alone, get along quite well. Social planners have always been among the most ignorant about man's nature. Evidence that man has a specific biological nature which cannot be remolded to suit society builders continues to mount, but political rulers continue to ignore it. If men are to be happy and successful, they must live in harmony with the requirements of their nature. What, then, are the essentials of man's nature? Life is given to man, but the means to sustain his life are not. If a man is to continue living, he must in some way acquire the things he needs to sustain his life, which means that either he or someone else must produce these things. There's no environment on Earth where man could exist without some sort of productive effort, and there's no way he could be productive without using his mind to decide what to produce and how to produce it. In order to survive, man must think. That is, he must make use of the information provided by his senses. The more fully and clearly he uses his mind, the better he'll be able to live, on both the physical, including the material, and the psychological levels. But thinking is not an automatic process. Man may expend a little or a lot of mental effort to solve his problems, or he may just ignore them and hope they'll go away. He may make it a policy to keep his mind fully aware and always use it as effectively as he can, whether he's a genius or a dimwit. Or he may drift through life in an unfocused mental haze, playing ostrich whenever he sees something that would require mental effort and commitment. The choice to think or not to think is his, and it is a choice which every man must make. Because man must initiate and maintain the process of thinking by an act of choice, no one else can force him to think or do his thinking for him. This means that no man can successfully run another man's life. The best thing one man can do for another is not to prevent him from enjoying the benefits of his thinking and productive work, nor to shield him from the bad effects of refusing to think and produce. Life is given to man, but the knowledge of how to sustain that life is not. Man has no automatic knowledge of what is good or bad for him, and he needs this knowledge in order to know how to live. If he is to have a full and happy life, he needs a blueprint to show him what is pro-life and what is anti-life, and to guide his choices and actions. Such a blueprint is a code of morality, a chosen guide to action. If a man wants his morality to further his life instead of crippling it, he must choose a morality which is in harmony with his evolved nature as a sensing, thinking being. Choosing effective guides to action is not a matter for blind faith or reasonless whim. It requires clear, rational thought. Therefore, one's morality shouldn't be a set of do's and don'ts inherited from one's parents or learned in church or school. It should be a clearly thought-out code, guiding one toward pro-life actions and away from anti-life actions. The purpose of morality is to teach you to enjoy yourself and live. A rational morality doesn't say, "Don't do this because God or society or legal authorities or tradition says it's evil." It does say, "Only if you act according to your reason can you have a happy, satisfying life." In any code of morality, there must be a standard by which all goals and actions can be judged. Only life makes values meaningful or even possible. If you're dead, you can't experience any values at all, and without values, happiness is impossible. So for each man who values living, his own life is his moral standard. Death, the negation of all values, is the only alternative standard. Since each man's own life is his objective standard, it follows that whatever serves or enhances his life and well-being is good, and whatever damages or destroys it is wrong. In a rational morality, one designed to further each individual man's life and happiness, whatever is pro-life is moral, and whatever is anti-life is immoral. By life is not meant merely man's physical existence, but all aspects of his life as a sensing, thinking being. Only by rational thought and action can a man's life be lived to its fullest potential, producing the greatest possible happiness and satisfaction for him. Man has only one tool for getting knowledge, his mind, and only one means to know what is beneficial and harmful, his faculty of reason. Only by thinking can he know what will further his life and what will harm it. For this reason, choosing to think is a man's most powerful tool and greatest virtue, and refusing to think is his greatest danger, the surest way to bring him to destruction. Since man's life is what makes all his values possible, morality means acting in his own self-interest, which is acting in a pro-life manner. There's nothing mystical or hard to understand about right and wrong. A rational morality makes sense. Traditional morality, teaching that each man must devote a part of his life not primarily for his own good, but for God or the state or the common good, regards man as a sacrificial animal. Today, many are recognizing this doctrine for what it is, the cause of incalculable human carnage, and a morality or life is gradually replacing it. A rational morality and a morality of self-interest, a pro-life morality. The only way for a man to know what will further his life is by a process of reason. Morality, therefore, means acting in his rational self-interest. In fact, no other kind of self-interest exists, since only that which is rational is in one's self-interest. Sacrifice, the act of giving up a greater value for a lesser value, a non-value, or a disvalue, is always wrong, because it's destructive of the life and well-being of the sacrificing individual. In spite of traditional moralities which glorify a life of sacrificial service to others, sacrifice can never benefit anyone. It demoralizes both the giver, who has diminished his total store of value, and the recipient, who feels guilty about accepting the sacrifice and resentful because he feels he's morally bound to return the favor by sacrificing some value of his own. Sacrifice carried to its ultimate end results in death. It is the exact opposite of moral, pro-life behavior, traditional moralists to the contrary notwithstanding. A man who is acting in his own self-interest, that is, who is acting morally, neither makes sacrifices nor demands that others sacrifice for him. There's no conflict of interest between men who are acting in their own self-interest, because it's not in the interest of either to sacrifice for the other or to demand a sacrifice from the other.